A Secret to No One But You by the Leafy Sea Dragon. Harry stared at Malfoy at the opposite end of the table, taking tiny, posh bites of his toast. Something was different. "May, pass the bacon, would you?" Harry kept looking and ignored Ron. "It's the hair, isn't it? It looks—" "Harry, bacon, please." At Ron's somewhat annoyed tone, Harry reached blindly for a dish, eyes still on Malfoy, and handed it to Ron. "Do you think he stopped using Sleekeasy? But why would he, unless he ran out of it? Or maybe he overslept?" Harry thought that if he'd run his fingers through it, it'd be soft. Not that he wanted to, of course. Ron muttered something about not asking for kippers and being so fucking done with this, but Malfoy stretched and ran a hand through his tousled hair, leaving a strand at the back sticking up, and Harry didn't hear anything else Ron said. The 8th year common room was decorated for the holidays. Baubles and lights in every color, mistletoe floating around the room dangerously. Music blared from the wireless, and the 8th years were laughing and drinking, celebrating the end of term. Harry had lost count of how many drinks he'd had, more than 2, less than 7, probably. Draco, no, Malfoy, had the audacity to show up to the party in trousers that hugged his arse in the most indecent way, which frankly should be illegal. This was a school, not a brothel. And if Harry needed to sit down for a bit, it had less to do with Malfoy's trousers and more to do with what was in them. No, with what was in his glass, he corrected himself. The magical amber goodness and liquid courage that was Odin's fire whiskey. He took another sip, then a larger swig, and plopped down on the sofa between Ron and the pointy, tight-trousered git. He turned to Malfoy to give him his 2 nuts on the whole trouser thing, only to discover that he had left the top button of his shirt unbuttoned, exposing the dip at the base of his throat. It looked soft and delicate and delicious. It was awful. Harry had a sudden urge to run his tongue over it, desperate to not let on, and quick-witted as it felt fueled by fire whiskey. He said, "Your trousers look awfully tight. Bet they'd look better on my floor." Yes, very scathing. Malfoy wouldn't suspect a thing. In fact, the look on his face was incredulous. Suddenly, extremely proud of his own brilliance, Harry needed to tell Ron, so he leaned in close and drunk, whispered, "Malfoy has absolutely no idea that I'm in love with him." Ron's voice was shocked, only it didn't sound quite like Ron. "You're in love with me?" Had Harry forgotten to turn? He squinted. "Oh, sorry." He turned his head the other way, and yes, there Ron was, his ginger hair glowing, and Harry's chest warmed. He really should let his friends know more often how much he loved them. Ron looked a little blurry around the edges, where he sat slumped down low, one hand covering his eyes. Harry leaned in and whispered loudly, "Ron, Malfoy has no idea I'm in love with him." Ron let out a long, suffering sigh and sat up. "Look," Ron sighed again and emptied his glass. "Look, incredible as it may seem, he's probably the only one who doesn't, or was until a minute ago," he muttered. Harry squinted at him. "What? I haven't told a soul. I only just told you, my best friend." Harry poked him in the chest as he said this. Ron rolled his eyes. "No need. It's painfully obvious." He clapped Harry on the shoulder, looking mildly sympathetic. "Everybody knows, mate." Harry looked at him for a bit, bleary-eyed. "But I only just found out myself last week. This makes no sense. You're drunk." When the sympathy on Ron's face only deepened, Harry rose and stalked over to Pansy with the resolution of thoroughly sloshed. "Parkinson," he swayed a little. "Is it true that the only one who doesn't know I'm in love with Malfoy is Malfoy?" Pansy, who was dancing with Blaise and Padma, turned to look at him. "Oh, is this finally happening then? Thank fuck." Harry ignored her. "Well, is it?" She rolled her eyes and sighed in an uncanny imitation of Ron and said, "Yes, just like you're the only person in the universe who doesn't know he is just as much in love with you." There was a strangled sound behind him, and Harry turned to see Draco standing there, spluttering and gesticulating angrily at Pansy. Sorry, darling, I had to say it, for everyone's sake. I can't take it anymore. You're pining and yearning and staring and glaring and wait. She handed her drink to Blaze and Catanaccio. 2 vials flew across the room and into her own palm. Holding them out to Harry and Draco, she said, "Drink this, it's a sober-up." Then she put a hand on each of their shoulders and steered them, rather forcefully, towards the dormitories. Harry was too dazed to protest. "Go in here, talk or kiss or fuck or whatever you have to do. I don't care. Just do something. I can't live like this anymore." She shoved them into an empty bedroom and pointed a warning finger at them. "And don't you dare come out before you're done confessing your undying love or desire or whatever the fuck this is." Then she turned and left, locking the door behind her. Draco's face was flushed and a little unsure, but he lifted his vial of sober-up to Harry and said, "Bottles up, Scarhead." Harry downed the potion in 2 big gulps. It tasted odd, but slowly the world around him stopped swinging and cleared, and everything became awkward. He looked at Draco, blushed furiously, and looked at the ceiling. It was a good ceiling, very fascinating. Harry hoped it would cave in and bury him. Draco, it seemed, had found an equally fascinating rug. Harry told the ceiling. "Morgana's tits," Draco swore quietly at the rug. A breath, and then Harry felt a hand close gently around his wrist. Draco stood before him. "Tell me again, if it's true." Harry swallowed. Draco's face was inches from his, gray eyes unreadable, lips looking extremely kissable, and the hair. When Harry didn't speak for some time, Draco let go of his wrist, turned away, and walked towards the door. "I knew it wasn't true," spite covering bitter disappointment and hurt. Harry felt the moment slip away and finally found his tongue. "Draco, wait." Draco halted and turned. "I am in love with you, I mean." Draco's eyes didn't meet Harry's. Harry summoned every ounce of his Gryffindor courage and took one step and then another, closing the space between them. He reached for Draco's hand, cool fingers twinning with his own, making him feel grounded. I'm in love with you." Draco looked at him, eyes still unreadable. "Yes?" "Yeah," Harry grinned nervously. "Apparently we were the last ones to find out." Draco snorted, and before Harry could say anything else, Draco's lips were on his. The kiss was soft, experimental. When Draco pulled back, Harry chased his lips and lifted his free hand to run it through Draco's hair. It was soft and silky, and when Harry tugged a little on it, Draco moaned helplessly against his lips. Draco's arm snaked around Harry, pulling him closer, their kiss deepening. The next time Draco pulled away, Harry let him, panting. Draco rested his forehead against Harry's and murmured, "Me too, Potter. In love with you, I mean." Harry felt light, as if a ton of bricks had fallen from his chest and shoulders, and if he didn't hold on to something, he'd soar out through the window and away, never to be seen again. He held on to Draco, pushed him against one of the posters of the bed, and kissed him until their lips were raw.